تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير. الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور. الذي خلق 7 سماوات طباقا ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت. فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور. ثم ارجع البصر كرتين ينقلب إليك البصر خاسئا وهو حسير. ولقد زينا السماء الدنيا بمصابيح وجعلناها رجوما للشياطين وأعتدنا لهم عذاب السعير. وجعلناها رجوما للشياطين وأعتدنا لهم عذاب السعير. صدق الله العظيم.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih kami ucapkan kepada
dengar akan seruanmu. Islam agama pemersatu, Unisba bangkit menyambutmu, melayani selalu. Sadarlah mahasiswa kami, untukmu umat yang berbakti, negeri rahmat ilahi, jaya dan abadi. Bukan tujuanmu, tapi kurbanmu. Jaya Islam bahagia nanti pastilah nyata. Bukan tujuanmu, tapi kurbanmu. Jaya Islam bahagia nanti pastilah nyata. Pastilah nyata.
Acara selanjutnya yaitu sambutan dan pembukaan yang akan disampaikan oleh Dekan Fakultas Dakwah kepada yang terhormat Ibu Dr. Ida Afida Doktoranda MAG. Disilahkan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Is present here, and honorable or participant and student, thank you very much for your welcome. Innal hamdalillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh
Acara selanjutnya yaitu pembacaan doa yang akan dipimpin oleh Mr. Muhammad Fauzi Arif, SOS MIKOM. Kepadanya disilakan. Time is yours.
Para hadirin, dalam kesempatan ini mari kita berdoa kepada Allah Subhanahu wa taala untuk kelancaran kita pada hari ini. Dan saya memohon juga mari kita doakan saudara-saudara kita yang sekarang ini sedang diberikan ujian oleh Allah taala di Palestina. Semoga diberikan kesabaran, kekuatan dan kemerdekaan oleh Allah taala. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. حمد شاكرين حمدا ناعمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافي مزيده يا ربنا لك الحمد ولك الشكر كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك الكريم وعظيم سلطانك اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم ورضي الله تبارك وتعالى عن كل صحابة الرسول الله أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات يا قاضي الحاجات اللهم ألف بين قلوبهم وأصلح ذات بينهم واجعل في قلوبهم الإيمان والحكمة وثبتهم على ملة نبيك ورسولك وأن يوفوا بعهدك الذي عاهدت عليه وانصرهم على عدوهم وعدوك إله الحق يا رب العالمين اللهم عذب الكفرة والمشركين الذين يكذبون رسلك ويقاتلون أولياءك ويصدون عن سبيلك يا رب العالمين اللهم افتح لنا أبواب الخير اللهم افتح لنا أبواب النعمة اللهم افتح لنا أبواب البركة اللهم افتح لنا أبواب الجنة إنك على كل شيء قدير ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Acara selanjutnya yaitu opening speech yang akan disampaikan oleh yang terhormat Dr. Ida Afida Doktoranda MAG. Please welcome. Time is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ini untuk kedua kalinya Prof, mohon maaf. Ini karena katanya harus ada opening speech. Oke. Sedikit saja mungkin. Dalam opening speech ini saya pakai bahasa Indonesia aja ya Prof. Prof juga alhamdulillah bahasa Indonesianya sudah luar biasa bagus ya. Karena beliau adalah peneliti kajian Islam di Indonesia. Jadi sudah berpuluh tahun beliau meneliti studi Islam di Indonesia dengan tokoh-tokoh nasional dan para ulama juga ke pesantren-pesantren. Ya, terima kasih Prof sudah berkunjung ke Unisba, ke Fakultas Dakwah. Ini saya membawa tema karena Prof ini ahli dalam musik dan bunyi ya, bunyi. Prof itu mengistilahkannya adalah bunyi suci gitu ya. Katanya Islam itu adalah agama yang disuarakan melalui tadi qiraat Quran, sholawat, kemudian zikir itu ya, semuanya adalah punya nada. Nah, jadi saya akan mengangkat the amazing of spiritual sound gitu ya. Jadi bunyi spiritual itu apalagi memiliki amazing gitu ya. Jadi seluruh alam ini sebetulnya adalah bunyi ya, gesekan menimbulkan bunyi, benturan menimbulkan bunyi dan lain-lain. Bunyi pada makhluk hidup itu atau terutama pada manusia diekspresikan berdasarkan apa yang ada dalam pikiran, hati dan rasa. Jadi tadi yang baca qori pasti pakai rasa ya, sehingga kita merasa merinding ya mendengarnya. Prof sampai gudeg-gudeg tadi ya, Prof mendengar suara Kang Hoir sampai gudeg-gudeg gitu ya. Ya itu yang namanya the miracle of spiritual sound ya. Jadi manusia mengekspresikannya itu, bunyi itu diekspresikan oleh manusia dalam pikiran, hati, rasa, sehingga seni tidak bisa dipisahkan dari hidup manusia. Baik itu seni musik, seni suara, seni budaya dan lain sebagainya. Manusia sebagai makhluk yang diberi akal dan agama tentu akan mengekspresikan nilai-nilai spiritualnya melalui bunyi ya, dengan media alat maka menjadi musik, atau melalui suara saja seperti tadi maka menjadi nada, dan kalau nada itu memakai syair maka menjadi lagu, dan konteksnya adalah religi karena tadi adalah ekspresi religiusitas seseorang itu, maka itu menjadi religi. Nah, kemudian bagaimana nilai spiritual tadi nada, nilai spiritual terekspresi oleh seseorang dalam nada, bunyi, syair lain sebagainya, terekspresikan dalam bingkai spiritual ya. Maka lahir ada syair, kalau syair sufi maka yang sudah suluk ya, maka lahir syair sufi. Kemudian murotal atau qiraat Quran, zikir, sholawat dan doa-doa itu terekspresi. Ya, sekarang bagaimana ekspresi spiritualitas tadi melalui bunyi berdampak pada seseorang gitu ya. Ini sedikit saja saya mengupas karena saya pernah meneliti neuroscience ya di ITB untuk disertasi saya, bagaimana pengaruh murotal Al-Quran terhadap gelombang otak yang melahirkan akhlak mulia gitu. Karena disertasi saya itu naskah kuno tasawuf Mama Sempur ya. Itu ulamanya Kiai Supinya adalah Mama Sempur, cicitnya Sunan Gunung Jati. Nah, itu beliau membahas, nah sekarang sudah ilmunya sudah ada ya neuroscience. Nah, berdasarkan beberapa riset luar negeri ya, dalam dan luar negeri, suara yang memberikan persepsi enak didengar oleh pendengarnya itu dapat menurunkan hormon stres dan meningkatkan hormon bahagia. Dia akan bisa mencairkan suasana. Sehingga musik dijadikan media untuk terapi, bahkan untuk bisa mengendalikan stres ya, atau manajemen stres. Murotal Quran dan zikir itu memberi lebih jauh lagi dampaknya, itu tadi baru musik ya. Nah, sekarang murotal Quran atau qiraat Quran dan zikir itu bisa memberikan efek yang lebih positif, menghasilkan perasaan tenang, rileks, menurunkan emosi, kemudian bisa lelap tertidur, bahkan bisa melahirkan akhlakul karimah atau perilaku yang baik. Dan sampai pada penemuan sekarang bahwa musik itu bisa menjadi terapi untuk anak inklusi yang mengalami gangguan emosi dan tantrum gitu ya. Itu di sini Bu Dewi ini ahlinya ya, psikologi Dewi. Gitu ya. Nah, bagaimana tadi bagaimana tadi kok bisa gitu ya murotal Quran, qori itu bisa mempengaruhi seseorang. Nah, kita punya otak dan di dalam otak itu ada gelombang. Jadi sinyal saraf otak menghasilkan gelombang otak dan setiap gelombang otak memiliki frekuensi melahirkan gelombang alfa, beta, gamma, theta, dan delta. Kasus dalam membaca qori Quran atau murotal Quran itu bisa menstimulasi hormon bahagia, merangsang gelombang alfa. Bisa tenang, kalem, tidak gampang emosi gitu ya. Argumentasinya seperti apa? Jadi bunyi itu akan ditangkap oleh daun telinga dan seterusnya, karena di dalam telinga itu ada siput telinga, ada di dalam itu ada organ-organ. Mungkin ini kedokteran yang lebih tahu ya. Dan kemudian terdapat hantaran mekanik, kan dalam otak kita itu penuh listrik ya. Nah, dalam telinga itu ada hantaran mekanik menjadi infus sampai pada otak bagian persepsi pendengaran, sehingga terintegrasi menjadi sebuah sistem untuk meningkatkan gelombang alfa, menimbulkan efek kebahagiaan dan ketenangan, sehingga melahirkan perilaku yang baik karena otak guide spotnya itu ternutrisi dengan baik. Sebagaimana dalam surat Ar-Ra'd ayat 28, ala bizikrillah tatmainul qulub, bahwa dengan zikir kepada Allah, membaca Al-Quran itu akan mendatangkan kebahagiaan. Nah, sini ini berdasarkan penelitian ya, baik luar negeri dalam negeri, the effect of zikir and murotal Quran or qiraat Quran ini terhadap terapi brain waves on brain parietal region, itu dengan memberikan stimulus berupa zikir atau murotal Quran itu menghasilkan frekuensi di alfa paling tinggi, yaitu dalam kondisi keadaan tenang, tetap bisa aktif bekerja, ketunduh gitu ya Bu. Biasanya kenapa kita ngaji Quran suka tunduh ya, atau zikir suka tunduh, nah itu karena membawa ketenangan ya, rileks, sehingga kita menjadi ngantuk gitu ya. Dia bisa mengerjakan hal positif yang lebih baik dan lebih profesional. Nah, bisa melahirkan etos kerja sebetulnya. Nah, ini dalam buku Islam mungkin saya kepada bagaimana sekarang musik sebagai media dakwah ya. Dalam sejarah zaman Rasulullah di Madinah itu sudah ada diiringi rebana ya dan syair-syair. Kemudian sejarah musik Islam juga tak bisa terlepas dari sosok filosof komponis yang sangat masyhur, yaitu Al-Farabi, yang merupakan filosof besar, pengarang kitab Al-Musiko Al-Kabir, sebuah kitab yang membahas tentang teori musik, termasuk teori musik modern yang mengilhami para pemusik-musik sekarang. Kemudian ada juga tokoh sufi Jalaluddin Ar-Rumi, kemudian ada Ismail Razi Al-Faruqi, ada juga Inayat Khan ya. Kemudian juga di Indonesia mungkin kita familiar sekali dengan Wali Songo. Bagaimana Sunan Kalijaga, Sunan Giri, Sunan Kudus itu membuat syair-syair yang sampai sekarang dinyanyikan di tanah Jawa gitu ya. Nah, kemudian dalam buku Islam dan Transformasi Masyarakat Nusantara, kajian sosiologi sejarah Indonesia yang ditulis oleh Mukli Hasbullah menyatakan bahwa salah satu genre musik Islam yang berkembang luas di Indonesia adalah sholawat. Berbagai genre musik ya disolawatkan, apalagi sekarang dengan teknologi peradaban musik yang semakin berkembang. Meskipun pada dasarnya sholawat itu lazimnya diasosiasikan dengan tradisi pembacaan puji-pujian terhadap Rasulullah SAW, tetapi berbagai komunitas muslim di Indonesia mengembangkan sholawat sedemikian rupa dalam berbagai bentuk dan konteks. Adapun poin penting yang perlu dicatat bahwa para ulama, para kiai, dan para sufi di Indonesia mengembangkan sholawat sebagai sarana untuk mentransformasikan ajaran-ajaran Islam dengan cara memberikan sentuhan lokal atau local wisdom, jenius lokal dan lain sebagainya dari segi bentuk dan komposisi. Kemudian kalau tadi ada sentuhan lokal ya, local wisdom atau jenius lokal, itu sebetulnya menelusuri kata kunci sentuhan lokal itu tidak bisa meminggirkan atau mengesampingkan fakta tentang para sunan yang merupakan sufi sekaligus seniman. mereka menggunakan seni sebagai media dakwah untuk menyebarkan Islam karena akan lebih nyaman, lebih damai, dan lebih bisa diterima. Karena dengan seni tadi orang bisa menjadi bahagia. Tadi sudah saya jelaskan ilmiahnya kenapa mendengar musik kita menjadi bahagia gitu ya, menjadi tenang, bahkan ikut ritme dan lain sebagainya. Nah, jadi mereka sangat ahli menyusun syair dengan nada. Mereka menyampaikan sehingga di sini tercipta tembang ya, yang sering dilakukan oleh masyarakat di tanah Jawa ya. Ini para sunan. Untuk menyampaikan dakwahnya mereka mencoba menggabungkan isi ajaran yang disampaikan dengan nilai-nilai lokalitas sehingga ajaran tersebut dapat diterima dengan mudah atau lebih mudah. Adapun teknik yang berunsur seni dinilai lebih efektif dan menyeluruh. Dapat diartikan lagi bahwa musik Islam mempunyai sisi spiritualitas. Ia tidak hanya untuk manusia pada tujuan kedamaian sosial, tetapi juga untuk mengajak pandangannya terhadap Tuhan, pendekatan terhadap Tuhan. Di sini berjumpa dengan Tuhan, berjumpa dalam tanda petik adalah mendekatkan diri kepada Allah. Mungkin itu saja yang bisa saya sampaikan, sebagaimana tadi bahwa seni musik merupakan power ya, kekuatan berekspresi untuk bisa
salah satu siswa di antara presenter Widya Tama
elemen di masyarakat, karena relatif musik itu lebih bisa diterima ya, syair, lagu dan sebagainya. Itu saja yang bisa saya sampaikan. Terima kasih. Jazakumullahu khairan katsiran. Wabitaufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Kepada Ibu Ida, please remain on the stage. Ibu Ida untuk berada tetap di atas panggung karena setelah ini akan ada penandatanganan. Oke. Baik. Hadirin sekalian, acara selanjutnya adalah penandatanganan implementation arrangement. The signing of the implementation arrangement by Dr. Ida Vida and Professor Anna Rasmussen. Please welcome on the stage. The implementation arrangement well signed. Thank you very much for Dr. Ida Afida and Professor Anna for signing the implementation arrangement. Hadirin sekalian, acara selanjutnya adalah penampilan dari tim Marawis. The performance of Tim Marawis from Universitas Islam Bandung. Please give applause. Well, okay, ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the mistaken. And now, kita akan sama-sama menyaksikan penampilan the performance of tim Kecapi dan Suling from Tata Laksana Unisba. Please give applause.
Lagu salajengna panginten ieu teh request ti Ibu Dekan, mohon. Oh iya mohon kulucuk malati teh ti Ibu Dekan cenah kitu, mohon. Mangga Ibu Dekan bilih bade ngarasakeun. Oh, panginten hiji deui lagu ti reng-rengan nyaeta Es Lilin.
Es lilin mah di darung dibantun mah dibantun kasuku jadi abdi isin bodekan samaraka hoyong sok isin mah geningan henteu ngajadi. Itu saha geningan nunung tunu mundi digantengan aduh ku sapu tangan itu saha geningan no gending teuing para kanca.
hatur nuhun kasadayana, alhamdulillah dua lagu kasanggakeun. Nyuhunkeun dihapunten. Mudah-mudahan katampi sadayana. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Please give applause for Tim Tata Laksana Unisba. What a good performance. The kecapi and suling are traditional musical instruments that are characteristic of West Java. Typically, the kecapi and suling are showcased at traditional and large-scale events in West Java. What makes these mesmerizing musical instruments are more unique is that they are crafted from the wood and bamboo. And they are usually used as music accompanying a sinden, which is a traditional Sundanese or Javanese female vocalist or singer. So please once again give applause for Tim Tata Laksana Unisba. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda is the performance of Tim Marawis. Tim Hadroh Rijalul Fatih. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, please give applause to Tim Hadroh Rijalul Fatih.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Allahumma salli وسلم وبارك عليه يا سيدي يا رسول الله. Say يا سيدي يا رسول الله يا سيدي يا حبيب الله يا محمد يا سيدي يا رسول الله يا سيدي يا حبيب الله يا سيدي يا رسول الله يا سيدي يا حبيب الله يا محمد يا سيدي يا رسول الله يا سيدي يا حبيب الله يا سيدي يا رسول الله يا سيدي يا حبيب الله يا محمد يا إمام الرسل يا سندي أنت باب الله معتمد فبدنياي وآخرتي يا رسول الله خذ بيدي يا إمام الرسل يا سندي الله أنت باب الله معتمدي فبدنياي وآخرتي الله يا رسول الله خذ بيدي قسما من نجمه لهوى المعافى وسقيم سوى قسما من نجمه لهوى المعافى وسقيم سوى فخر الكونين أنك سواهم بمولى العون والعجم يا إمام الرسل يا سندي الله أنت باب الله معتمدي فبدنياي وآخرتي الله يا رسول الله خذ بيدي سيد السادات من مضري غوث أهل البدو والحضر سيد السادات من مضري على معناه ضار فهو عمادي يوم المعادي نبينا طه المختار حي الهادي بأجمل ذكرى صلوا على يا مدار فهو عبادي يوم المعادي نبينا طه المختار من القدس سار ليلا ثم دنا فتدلى من القدس سار ليلا ثم دنا فتدلى فهو عمادي يوم المعادي نبينا طه المختار حي الهادي بأجمل ذكرى صلوا على يا مدار فهو عمادي يوم المعادي نبينا طه المختار صلى مولانا علي والآل وصحبه الذي صلى مولانا علي والآل وصحبه اليدين فهو عبادي يوم المعادي نبينا طه المختار حي الهادي بأجمل ذكرى صلوا على يا مدار فهو عبادي يوم المعادي بهدى طه المختار اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه
Mungkin sekian penampilan daripada Hadroh Rijalul Fatih. Mohon maaf apabila ada kesalahan dari vokalnya mungkin ya, ataupun dari pemain yang lainnya, mungkin bisa dimaafkan ya. Sekian, terima kasih. Wallahu muwaffiqil aqwamit thoriq. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Tim Hadro Rijalul Fatih, for good performance. Hadroh or Marawis is a traditional Islamic musical performance that is popular in various regions, particularly in Indonesia and Malaysia. It features a unique blend of music and vocals, often performed in celebration of various religious or festive occasions. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda is our main event, our main agenda, the guest lecture with the theme From the Archipelago to the World, the rich tradition of Islamic music in Indonesia, which will be delivered by the Honorable Professor Anne Rasmussen, PhD, and moderated by Dr. Malki Ahmad Nasir. And Dr. Malki Ahmad Nasir is a lecturer of the Dakwah Faculty at Universitas Islam Bandung. He completed his undergraduate studies at IAIN Syarif Hidayatullah, obtained his master's degree from the Faculty Islamic Revealed Knowledge, and completed his doctoral studies at the International Institute for Islamic Thought and Civilization in Malaysia. Some of his work has been published in the journal Islamia Insists, and he co-authored a book titled Pluralism Agama, Telaah Kritis Cendekiawan Muslim with colleagues from Insist. Dr. Malki Ahmad Nasir has presented papers at Sulaiman Demirel University in Isparta and witnessed Sufi dance performance in Konya, Turkey. He has also conducted research on medical manuscript in the Leiden Library in the Netherlands. Before joining Unisba, he held teaching positions at various institutions including USM, ITB, ITENAS, STKS, and STIPI, among others, etc. Certainly, ladies and gentlemen, let's invite Professor Anne Rasmussen and Dr. Malki Ahmad Nasir to take the stage. Please welcome and give applause.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahilladzi arsala rasulahu bil huda wa dinil haq liyudhhirahu ala dzini kullihi wa kafa billahi syahida. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la syarikalah wa asyhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Thank you very much. Yeah. Before I go further, I would like to read the short CV from the speaker. Yeah, her name is Professor Annie K. Rasmussen, is an American educator and ethnomusicologist. Yeah. Much of her research focused on Arab music in the US and Islamic ritual and performance. She has been the director of the William and Mary Middle Eastern Music Ensemble since 1994. Yeah. Professor Annie was named the William M. and Annie B. Vickers Professor of Middle Eastern Studies in 2014, and some of her research and also works already translated into Indonesian languages. I think so. Yeah. Talking about Islamic music, actually, I remember to the so-called pupujian. I think it is pupujian is oftenly sang in the madrasah or pesantren, or mosque, or any religion sports, So as learning media, the pupujian means this is a religious song, yeah. Repeatedly sung, it is hoped that kids, santri or public, will be awakened and have wish to follow the advice and religion's lesson, which spreads through the poem. Yeah. So it is sung when the times come from subuh and maghrib praying usually. So I think Prof. Ani already familiar with this word, I think, and also some of the poem, yeah, the pupujian. Actually, it is based on the Sundanese tradition, yeah. And I think, yeah, before go further for the lecture, I think it's enough. Now it's time. It's yours. Thank you very much.
Hello, hello. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everybody. How are you? Fine, okay. Is it okay if I speak English? Bisa juga bahasa Indonesia, tapi mungkin pelan-pelan bahasa Inggris supaya bisa latihan bahasa Inggris, ya? Okay. Apa? Bilingual, okay. Kalau ada masalah, tolong raise your hand, yeah? Okay. Thank you very much, Dean Ida, and thank you for your kind remarks. I have also, saya juga ke Leiden untuk melihat beberapa manuskrip dan juga ke Konya untuk melihat Whirling Dervishes. We are going to make an experiment because the gentleman here, siapa namanya Pak? Iqbal is going to run the PowerPoint. So I am no longer in control. I've lost control. So in the United States, we recognize, ini pentingnya, we recognize that we are settler colonialists. Di sini ada kolonialisme. Di Amerika, we call this settler colonialism, where we took the land away from the indigenous peoples, the American Indians that lived on the land. So I teach and do research from the land of these many tribes, these many groups, they are all listed here today, and I acknowledge that it is their land that we live on. William and Mary is the second oldest university in the United States. It was built in 1693, ya. Jadi universitas tertua kedua, ya, sangat. Jadi ada semua sifat-sifat historis yang bagus dan semua sifat historis yang kurang bagus, ya. So, okay, next please. This is a little bit about my work. Maaf, saya berdiri aja ya. This is a little bit about my work. My first work after my dissertation was about the many different ethnic groups in the United States, right? A multicultural America, so one of my publications. Next slide. My focus for my dissertation work was on the music of the Arab American community, right? Orang Arab yang ada di Amerika, dari Syria, dari Lebanon, dari Palestine, and I am still an advocate for the music and the culture and the language and the religions of Arab people in the United States and on my campus. Right now is a very, very difficult time in the United States because of the war in Israel. And many of my students are at risk because they feel it's a very difficult time for us. So, yeah, very complex. Waktu saya belajar musik dan masyarakat orang Arab di Amerika, saya juga I also learned how to play the music. So I play gambus, saya main gambus, dan saya juga main alat ini, namanya kanun. Dan ini kelompok saya, ini grup saya di Amerika. ada beberapa instrumen-instrumen, ada bass, ada biola, ada rebana, ada darbuka. So almost 30 years I have been leading this group. Next slide, please. I have also done research in the Arabian Gulf, in Oman, ini Oman dekat Yemen dan dekat United Arab Emirates. And these are some photographs from 2010. So I did this after my research in Indonesia. Next slide, please. My main work that is known in Indonesia is this book, Women, the Recited Quran and Islamic Music in Indonesia. And it was published in translation by Mizan in 2019, Merayakan Islam dengan Irama. And I think the title, the way that the title is translated, shows the Indonesian sensibility for the way that we use music to celebrate, to teach, to create ritual around religion, right? So it's not, music is not a problem, right? It just depends. Next slide, please. Yeah, and right now I'm working on a new book, and I would like your ideas, please. And it's called Monsoon Melodies, Listening with Muslim Indonesia in an Indian Ocean World. And this will be an open access book, jadi gratis, bisa klik aja ke Universitas California website, dan juga ada banyak media, ada gambar-gambaran, ada video, ada rekaman from my field work. So, next slide, please. There are several things that I like to do in my work. First of all, I like to highlight the role of women, right? Women out loud. I've worked very much with Ibu Maria Ulfa, yang di atas. This is us recording some music salawatan in a recording studio. Tetapi Ibu Maria Ulfa, Korea besar, sangat terkenal di seluruh dunia. Sudah ke Amerika 2 kali, and so she has been one of my very important colleagues, like my big sister, for 25 years, yeah? 25 years and more. I also have spent much time with the orchestra of Kiai Kanjeng and MH Ainun Najib. Saya sudah keliling banyak dengan Kiai Kanjeng sejak tahun 2004, ya. Saya main di belakang dengan seniman-seniman musik dan kadang-kadang wawancara sama Cak Nun. So there also, you see, we have women who are a very important part of the group. Dan ini hanya tahun yang lalu di Grup Qasidah Rebana Al-Istiqamah di Riau, Sumatera. And maybe we can have the next slide, please. Let's go ahead and play this video. Ini contoh kegiatan kelompok Qasidah Rebana di mana-mana saja di Indonesia. Coba. So some people would say that coba dari awal ya. Okay. Kota Dumai, Riau. Great. So last year I was invited to Riau in Kota Dumai, and this was the first time I had been to the area, but I've interviewed many group Qasida Rabana and asked women about what is the motivation, what's in it for them. Some people would say that kelompok-kelompok pengajian atau Qasida Rabana ini sebagai ibuization, right? Or new order, and the women can work for the nation, right? But there's another side that says women are empowered by being involved in religious knowledge, by being involved in da'wah activities. They leave the house, they have important responsibilities, they make important decisions, it's fun, they are spending time with other women. In that group you see the older women, but also the younger women working together. So I think it's very much a matter of the motivation is much more towards empowerment than control. The second thing I like to highlight is to be against a unitary Islam. I write about action, process, experience, rather than about a unitary Islam that does things to peoples and cultures. I try not to traffic in generalizations, and if you are interested, the anthropologist Laila Abou-Lughod is a wonderful model to follow. And rather, I try to ask, how do people experience institutions like the family? Or how do you experience marriage? How do you experience professional life? How do you experience patriarchy, right? Rather than saying women are this or patriarchy is this, right? But is the experience of communities? How are we shaped by various institutions like religion or education and so forth? I'm following Shahad Bashir and his article on Islamic time, Rethinking Chronology in the Historiography of Muslim Societies. And he interrupts the quest for a chronological paradigm of Islam as a world religion, recognizing the ways in which, quote, most scholarly production occurs within frameworks and core understandings that were first established by self-proclaimed Orientalists as early as the second half of the 19th century, right? So he says that much of our knowledge comes from Orientalists, right? It's already framed, Islam is this, it does that, and first this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, because this is very much a Western mindset, a Western framework of organizing knowledge, right? So he warns us, Bashir, he warns us against, he warns us against the a priori attribution of an essential core to Islam. He says that this is not a good idea, that unifies all things Islamic into a single system. This approach, he writes, allows us to observe connections and influences and causation between human acts and events without the necessity of a reified Islam that must stand as an essence behind the easily observable apparent diversity. So I'm hardly immune to Orientalist thought. I think it pervades Western scholarship, and also that Western scholarship that has been translated to Indonesia and to other areas of the world. But I think I've tried to, with my past writing and my current book project, and merely my presence here with you, to counterweight some of these assumptions, to provide a different narrative, a new narrative. Next slide, please. Coming from a place that values silence and order, right? Kalau di negara barat, mereka sedang sepi, right? Tidak ramai-ramai. Pasti ada tempat ramai dan seterusnya, tapi biasanya orang mengeluh kalau ada bunyi dari dari jalan atau dari kantor di samping, ya. So here I've been so amazed by the
salah satu siswa di Archipelago Center Widya
I've
Tama.
also marveled at the power of sound and the importance of hearing as key to cognition. And I've tried to convey my own journeys in echolocation and audio knowing. There is great prestige associated with a beautiful voice, and the way that voice is rehearsed and evaluated is central to my work. One of the chapters of my book is called
Islamic Atmosphere. Saya bermain ganding bersama Kak Dadi.
As Ibu Ida was remarking before, noise is an affirming phenomenon that marks territory, conveys information, proclaims power, and builds community through the aesthetics of speech, song, music, and noisy commotion. Kalau di Amerika tidak ada kata untuk ramai, hanya di Indonesia, ya. Kalau ramai pasti sangat penting, ya. So this is in Kalimantan, in
salah satu siswa di Archipelago Center Widya Tama jurusan seni musik.
Next slide, please. Okay. I also believe in collaborative knowledge. Kalau saya sendiri wawancara sama orang, ya pasti it's not enough. Yeah, it's just not enough. It's always through dialogue that I learn something, right? And that we learn something together. What are the questions I'm interested in? What are you interested in, right? And together we make knowledge. The most recent example of collaborative knowledge was during the pandemic. I was supposed to be here in Indonesia, tapi oleh karena pandemi, saya di rumah saja. Saya punya dana, saya punya cuti dari urusan di universitas. So what to do, ya? I made with Prof. Dadi Darmadi dari UIN Jakarta dan Prof. Muhammad Asad dari Universitas Hashim Ashari di Jombang. We made a collaborative virtual ethnology. We had 3 focused discussion groups. Yang pertama, para orang yang main seni musik Islam seperti grup Qasidah Rebana, grup kampus. Pasti mereka di rumah saja, tidak ada pertunjukan, tidak bisa cari uang. Very different world for everybody. FGD yang kedua itu para kori dan korea profesional. And yang ketiga para guru-guru universitas. And from Bandung, we had 2 very important participants, Dr. Asep Iqbal and also Kiai Haji Muhammad Rifat dari Pondok Pesantren Al-Falah dan Al-Falah 2 di Cicalengka yang saya kenal sejak lama, ya. Okay, next slide, please. So the festivalization of religion. Shadowing reciters. Jadi saya ikut Kori dan Korea sejak tahun 95, ya. So following them since 1995 or 1996 for competitions, for meetings, training sessions, and even family vacations has introduced me to folk and regional and popular cultures in Sumatra, in Kalimantan, in Sulawesi, and all over Java, and to the intertwining of religious fanfare with civic life. Some people would say the topic of Quranic recitation is narrow, but it led me to intersectional worlds of religion, politics, gender, social class, and competing and complementary aesthetics as they emerge in contexts ranging from the small village to the presidential palace. These relationships continue to lead me to events where musical arts at and as ritual perform the work of creating and teaching history and social structure, memory and aspiration, nostalgia and belonging, in addition to, of course, creating community. Kalau para orang etnomusikologi, kami selalu bilang music creates community, ya. Kalau ada event pakai musik pasti ada komunitas. I'd like to talk about the recently published book What is Religious Authority by Ismail Fajri Al-Attas. Next slide, please. So Ismail Fajri Al-Attas, in his new book, What is Religious Authority? Cultivating Islamic Communities in Indonesia, focuses on the figure of Habib Lutfi in Pekalongan, yeah? And I understand there's a connection with Ibu Ida to Habib Lutfi. And he uses the term articulatory labor. So let's read this quote. If every Islamic social formation is a product of articulatory labor, then differences among Islamic communities can be explained in terms of articulatory variation. This permits us to develop a non-holistic and non-historicist reading of Islam and Islamic history, one that portrays the transmission of Islam not as a linear process, but as a discontinuous reproduction of different Islamic communities, all of which may be interrelated without necessarily forming a whole. All right. In charting the proliferation of Muslim community in Indonesia, we can look to the production of musical style as an extremely effective mode of articulatory labor, right? So, banyak macam-macam musik, banyak articulatory labor. All right, next slide, please. All right, so that's the introduction. I want to talk a little bit about number 2, the conservative turn in Muslim Indonesia, then the Indian Ocean turn in ethnomusicology, and I'd like to do one small case study of the second Konferensi Islam Asia Afrika pada tahun 1965, and talk about some of the ways in which we see the Indian Ocean in Indonesia. Yeah, bagus? Is that a good plan? Setuju? Okay, all right. Next slide, please. Okay. My project began in 1995 with a chance meeting at the Festival Istiqlal in Jakarta, and then an invitation by Mursid Kori Indra to the Institute Ilmu Quran. Saya ikut kelas-kelas di Institute Ilmu Quran, satu institut buat perempuan untuk pengetahuan Al-Quran. And so I had a whole new research scene. I was very excited. After 1 year, I returned home and I applied for a Fulbright grant to return to Indonesia to look more and more at seni musik Islam, Islamic musical arts. Next slide, please. When we returned in 1999 with a Fulbright grant and my family of 4, everything that had to do with religion had become political. Jadi, in 1996, saya bilang, okay, music, religion, that's it, no problem, right? 1999, everything was political. My grant period, in fact, was delayed for 6 months because of the riots in Jakarta. Berbahaya sekali, ya. The financial crisis, or krisis moneter, krismon, was in full swing, and President Suharto's 32-year rule was over, with Vice President B.J. Habibie installed as interim president while the country prepared for its first ever democratic elections. So ini ikan krismon yang saya simpan dari tahun 1999. Why would there be ikan krismon? What's the point? What is it? It's funny, right? Why do we have ikan krismon? Yeah, somebody answer. Kenapa ada ikan krismon? Lucu ya? Because we don't have money to feed them, right? Ikan krismon tidak harus memelihara, tidak harus kasih makanan ya, hanya dipaket saja atau you put it in a bowl of water and very inexpensive, right? So I've saved this since 1999. Next slide, please. This is a wayang festival. Saya bersama suaminya bertuan sama Presiden Habibie, and also tiba-tiba ada 48 different political parties. Luar biasa complex, right? And this is after the first time I was here, hanya ada Suharto, hanya ada Golkar, itu saja ya. Then we came back, 48 political parties, and this is an example we lived in Jalan Fatmawati in Jakarta Selatan, and this is an example of the campaign season. I think school was canceled for 3 months. Sekolah umum tidak ada, dibatalkan, ditutup oleh karena ada musim kampanye. I was fortunate, next slide please. I was fortunate that the Fulbright office in Jakarta, Aminef, and if you are interested to study in the United States, ada yang mau ikut S2 di Amerika? Mungkin? Ya, amin ya. Kalau tertarik, pasti harus mulai dengan kantor Aminef di Jakarta, American Indonesian Exchange Foundation. Di sana semua mahasiswa yang pergi ke Amerika untuk S2, they go through this office, ya. Ada cukup banyak yang setiap tahun, termasuk dari Darmadi, ya. So I was lucky that I was assigned to mentors at UIN Sharif Hidayatullah. Next slide, please. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Back one. Yeah. So Azumari Azra almarhum, and then Mashikori Abdullah. And I think ada banyak orang etnomusikologi seperti saya, tapi mereka lebih belajar kecapi suling, atau gamelan, atau wayang, atau musik-musik lokal. I think I was really the first one to study Islamic music and the only ethnomusicologist to have as my research sponsor the Islamic University. So I didn't realize how important that was, but one of the great benefits is that I'm here talking to you today at Unispa, yeah? Next slide, please. So we didn't know it in 1999, yeah, but the conservative turn in Indonesian Islam that we were all witnessing in 1999 and during the Reformasi was only given this name 10 years later by scholar of Muslim Indonesia, Martin van Brunissen, and his paper titled, "What Happened to the Smiling Face of Indonesian Islam? Muslim Intellectualism and the Conservative Turn in Post-Suharto Indonesia." And during this first decade of 2000, many of my colleagues also started seeing the way that Islam was important, whether it was in Kecapi Suling, or in Gamelan, or in Wayang, or in Jaipongan, that Islamic kecenderungan religi ada efek dalam seni apa saja, and that led to the publication of this book, which has 14 different authors writing on different aspects of music and Islam in Indonesia. When I returned to Indonesia with a new project in mind in January of 2017, the splintering effect of Suharto's fall, what Van Brunissen called the conservative turn in 1999, had matured into a visibly divided Indonesia. So here are 3 examples, yeah? So just to review, pada tahun 1999, saya datang ke Indonesia dengan Fulbright, everything was political, yeah? Ada krismon, ada reformasi, ada pemilu, the first direct elections. Then 10 years later, I published my book. We have this idea that this was the conservative turn, and now we fast forward to 2017. Saya datang lagi ke Indonesia tanpa keluarga sudah besar, tetapi lagi dengan Fulbright dan sponsor penelitian saya lagi UIN Jakarta, Syarif Hidayatullah. Okay, next slide, please. So 3 examples of how a divided Indonesia, that I could see in my own research. For example, at my base camp in South Jakarta, in Baitul Qura, Pondok Pesantren Baitul Qura, is the Pondok Pesantren of Dr. Andes Haja Maria Ulfa, the Korea Besar, and her husband, Dr. Mukhtar Ihsan. Their neighbors had whispered that the women and men, the girls and boys in the pesantren, were mixing up in the same room. So they put a screen, you know, in the hospital, where if you have 2 beds in a hospital, they have the green screen in the middle. They put green screen, so the girls would be on one side and the boys would be on the other side. So maybe this today is obvious, right? But back then, it was a surprise for Maria Ulfa and her husband that the neighbors were talking. They were talking, they were saying, this is not good. They don't separate the boys from the girls. And kalau pendapat Ibu Maria, dia bilang, aduh, mereka sedang solat. This is not a problem. They're doing their prayers. This is not you know, ini bukan tempat heboh, yeah? It's not a bad place, right? So that was one thing. A second thing is Dr. Mukhtar Ihsan said, you know, the neighbors are complaining that it's too loud, that our classes, Tilawatul Quran, kelas-kelas Tilawatul Quran terlalu keras, azan terlalu keras, kegiatan terlalu keras. And this is the first time the neighbors begin to complain, too noisy, terlalu ramai dari pesantren, ya. Dulu this was a good thing, ya. Kalau ada kegiatan di pesantren, lebih baik melebarkan, ya, to broadcast it. And then the third thing is, kalau Ibu Maria Ulfa, dia bikin banyak kaset-kaset, ribuan, ratusan mungkin, yeah, many cassettes, and they were re-released on YouTube. Jadi keluar lagi di YouTube. Tetapi lewat media sosial ada orang yang mengeluh seperti itu. Ya, suara bagus, tajwid bagus, tajwid luar biasa bagus. Tapi kasihan bisa melihat aurat, right? They didn't understand. Mereka tidak mengerti bahwa pada tahun 80-an kalau pakai kerudung gini, it's just biasa saja. Ini orang soleh. This was a faithful person, a religious person. Mungkin ibu masih ingat waktu pakai kerudung segini. So they did Photoshop, right? They put Photoshop on the cassettes supaya jilbab cover all the way to there, ya. So saya bisa melihat di depan mata saya beberapa perubahan antar tahun 1999 then 2017, yeah, almost 20 years later, yeah. So a lot of changes. Next slide, please. Okay, so another aspect. Another thing that was interesting to me was there was a controversy surrounding a reciter who used Javanese melodies to recite the Quran. When I came in 2017, everybody asked me, bagaimana pendapat Anda tentang Qori yang pakai langgam Jawa di Istana Presiden? Everybody was asking me, yeah? So I realized this is a big controversy, and in some ways it was an allegory and a foreshadowing of this, which was happening with Ahok, yeah? That, and of course you know the story, so I don't need to complain it. But ada juga banyak demo Islam radikal yang saya menyaksikan sendiri di Solo, and keluarga saya ya takut sedikit bahwa saya jalan-jalan sendirian. So I wrote about this in a very recent book called Sounding Out the State of Indonesian Music, and I think that's just from 2022, this book. Okay, next slide, please. So let's talk about the Indian Ocean turn in ethnomusicology. Sekarang ini dalam studi-studi in the humanities, people are trying to break out of what we call methodological nationalism, right? The idea that we take the nation state as the category of analysis, right? What is the country of Indonesia? What is the flag? What is the national anthem? What are the clothes? What is the food? What is the music? Okay, now let's go to Malaysia and ask the same questions. Now let's go to Egypt and ask the same questions. So because nations are colonially based categories, right? The idea is to try to look beyond just the nation state, right? So ada banyak orang yang sangat tertarik in the Indian Ocean as a place where ideas and practices and material culture has circulated for centuries and centuries and centuries. So for example, because I've done some work in oleh karena saya latar belakang saya studi kebudayaan Arab dan bahasa Arab, pasti saya selalu melihat the intersections of Arabic and Indonesian culture. And some people see my work as sort of at the beginning of this Indian Ocean turn. So here are some examples. For example, ini seperti kanbus jadi gambus. The drums like the hajar marawis, right? These are marwas drums in dalam satu toko di Jakarta. This also comes from the Arab world. For example, when I was first working with reciters, mereka masih bisa pakai lagu Makawi, the first melodies for reciting the Quran that came from Mecca and not from Egypt. But then later, for example, this singkatan Behusran Jasad untuk ingat maqamat sistem lagu Arab, ya, maqam Bayati, Bayati Hijaz, Sabah, Nahawan, Jakarta, Sika, Ajam, that we heard, earlier in the recitation. I think next slide. I don't know, so this, for example, this is in Oman, and you see the marwas, right? So, yeah, mereka juga main marwas. Terima kasih, ya. So from my research in 2011, and should we try the next video, maybe? Tadi suara kecil sekali, ya? Oh, okay. Maybe that will work. Tidak. Okay, you're going to have to use your imagination. Yeah, very cool, very cool. So yeah, it's good, right? They're good. This is the group Zanzibar from Malang, and even just their name, Zanzibar, right? It looks to the Indian Ocean, right? The traditions of Hajar Marawis are amazing, right? These percussion traditions in Indonesia, you should really be very proud. They're among the very richest in the world. Very complex rhythms and so many varieties, right? Setiap pesantren ada ciri khas. They have their own comments. So in this book, I attended a conference that was organized by these wonderful ethnomusicologists, and I mentioned that the first competition in Quranic recitation happened at the Konferensi Asia Afrika di Bandung. Why? Because everybody told me that. Kori-Korea di Jakarta dan di seluruh Indonesia. Saya bilang, kapan itu pertama kali musabaqah tilawatul Quran internasional? Mereka merespon, ya, Konferensi Asia Afrika, Bandung. So they said, these people, they said, Anne, Ibu Anne, you have to write about this. You have to research this and write about this topic. So I said, okay, saya coba. Next slide. Quranic recitation was likely to have been, so this is our case study, right? Sekarang ini case study, part 4, yeah? Quranic recitation was likely to have been used as a frame for various ceremonial events at the 1955 conference. Diplomacy historian Naoko Shimazu, who describes the meeting of the combined dynamism of the newly decolonized independent states of Asia and Africa as a mythical moment, highlights the symbolic meaning generated by and in performance and pageantry. For example, there's parade, all the different beautiful national costumes. There was certainly various kinds of regional music. Termasuk angklung, termasuk maybe also like kecapi suling, yeah? Engaging in rituals at the margins of international civics, practicing Muslims from the 29 emergent nations of Asia and Africa who were gathered in Bandung would have rubbed shoulders in events both performative and communal, activating what Ronit Ricci calls an Arabic cosmopolis. While it's possible that festival presentations by reciters were part of the cultural entertainments that played on in the margins of the 7-day conference, I was never able to corroborate my consultant's assertions of either a scheduled competition, musabaqah, or of a hafla, literally a Quran listening party, among the reciters at the Bandung conference. What is certain, however, is that Quranic arts and Islamic culture were central to the second iteration of the Bandung conference, the Konferensi Islam Asia Afrika, which was held 10 years later in 1965, from March 6th to 14th. Next slide, please. Khairatun Shiasen affirms the 1965 Konferensi Islam Asia Afrika, or Bandung 2.0, as the culmination of 15 years in search of an Islamic identity. The conference, which was attended by 107 delegates from 33 countries, 4 observers, and 40 delegates and 21 advisors from Indonesia, represented the full spectrum of the Islamic community in Indonesia at the time and confirmed Indonesia's place as a center of Islamic revival and renaissance equal to the existing examples of Turkey, Egypt, Palestine, and India. What clicks for me is the emphasis on Islamic praxis as both cultural and artistic, on religion as a wellspring for creativity, and on art as an act of da'wah, right? So next slide, please. Among the numerous organizations that sprung up around that time, we have the Himpunan Seni Budaya Islam and also Les Bumi, the Lembaga Seniman Budayawan Muslim Indonesia. So it was very interesting for me to look back at the emergence of these organizations, because I have often interacted with orang Les Bumi atau orang orang seni dari Muhammadiyah. Yeah. Next slide, please. For example, in Malang in 2017, I did a program with the Lembaga Seni Budaya Muslim Indonesia in Malang with Almarhum Kiai Agus Sunyoto, and I was very surprised that I showed up on their Idul Fitri kartu Idul Fitri pakai Ibu Anne. It's like, oh my gosh. So, yeah, crazy, right? So this is an exciting moment in Indonesia's leadership of the Afro-Asiatic Ummah. Rather than to only be on the receiving end of Arab Muslimness, Indonesia defines and disseminates Muslim culture, offering models of culture and practice and aesthetic sensibilities. The Quran competition at the second Bandung conference originates with the extraordinary acts of ordinary individuals. Next. This micro-history, and that's what we say in Indian Ocean Studies, you have to focus on micro-histories because it's not productive to try to create a linear history with one thing and then the next and the next, but rather things are proliferating all around the Indian Ocean. So this micro-history centers on Basori Alwi, an educator, a competition, a coach, and a judge, a recording artist, and a reciter known for developing and popularizing the melodic or mujawid style of Tilawat al-Quran. Beginning in the 1950s, before the Subuh, the morning prayers, Alwi and 4 of his friends performed tarhim or salawat along with verses of the Quran at the ancient Ampel Mosque in Surabaya, East Java, which of course is still a site of worship and pilgrimage to the grave of Sunan Ampel, Wali Songo, one of the Wali, Sunan Ampel. The singing and recitation, next slide please. The singing and recitation that began by Alwi and his friends caught the attention of the locals, and his group subsequently launched a regular Friday evening Laylat al-Quran, or Evening of the Quran. The coalition of interested reciters spawned an organization of male and female reciters and memorizers from across Java and beyond. Next, please. The Jamiat al-Qura wal-Hufad, the Association of Reciters and Memorizers, which was formally established by Kiai Haji Wahid Hashim, Indonesia's first Minister of Religious Affairs. All right. And this organization exists to the very present day. Right? Ibu Maria Ulfa is a member of the organization. Next slide, please. Founding member Basori Alwi was invited to recite for President Sukarno at the palace, and then to appear at the Conference Asia Africa in 1955, and then to assist in the planning of the first international competition, Musabaqah Tilawat al-Quran International, in the Conference Islam Asia Africa 1965. Immediately following Bandung, the Bandung Conference, Alwi and 2 colleagues embarked on a government-sponsored mission to 9 Arab nations, plus Pakistan and India, using recitation or tilawa as their alat or cara of diplomacy. Tilawa seperti alat atau cara diplomasi. Next slide, please. So I submit that with its best reciters in the show, the Bandung Conference, the second one, cultivated a sense of shared aesthetics within what Enseng Ho has promoted as Inter-Asia, an old world crisscrossed by interactions between parts that have known and recognized one another for centuries. Thus, cultural capital among the Bandung participants was shared not only through discourse, but also through practices that participants could experience and bring home. Next slide. So, oh yes, this was very exciting for me. Last year, I was at Pondok Pesantren Tebu Ireng, and in the ruang tamu ada portret-portret, ada Hashim Ashari, ada Wahid Hashim, the First Minister of Religious Affairs, the son, and then his son, Gustur, the first president, who was important for me because I was here when he was elected president in the first democratic elections. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's just very quickly take 3 aspects of this microhistory and see the way it looks. It's part of a larger Indian Ocean world history. First, Sunan Ampel. Next slide, please. So yeah, we'll look at, Sunan Ampel, Salawat, and something else I forgot, yeah. Okay, so Sunan Ampel, one of the 9 Wali Songo, yeah, and this is his tomb in Surabaya, and these are the big bedug di depan Masjid Ampel di Surabaya. His heritage is multinational and multi-ethnic. It's Arab, Chinese, Vietnamese, and Javanese, just to start. He is also created with particular artistic initiatives. In my 2005 article called The Arab Aesthetics in Indonesian Islam, I cite him as the composer of Lir Ilir, a Javanese gending dolonan, or children's song, that was adapted by Emha Ainun Najib, or Chatnun, an author, poet, dramaturg, and also, in his words, ulama mbling, or naughty cleric, and his ensemble Kiai Kanjeng. And you young people don't know this, but in 1999, there was an important VCD masih sekarang tidak ada lagi, tapi ibu-ibu, bapak-bapak masih ingat ya zaman VCD, dan berhijrah dari kegelapan. Ini keluar dari Chatnun sama Kiai Kanjeng. And in the background, it was right after the riots in May, and in the background you see Jakarta is burning. The song is still very popular in Java. Saya kurang tahu apakah di Jawa Barat masih ada. But here is a relatively recent performance of that song. Next slide, and saya minta maaf oleh karena video kurang enak. This, I just want to point out, ini orang pakai buni, this brown chocolate. This is Mas Sabrang, the son of Chatnun. Let's try it. Let's give it a try. So just one example of the use of solawatan, pakai lagu Jawa, digabung lagu Arab, syairnya bahasa Jawa, the tambahan of the whirling dervish. I don't know, Pak, from Konya, if you remember the whirling dervish. Hello, Pak, did you see the whirling dervish? Yeah, ini juga fenomena baru ya. Fenomena baru, whirling dervish di Indonesia, pasti pada tahun 99 pasti tidak ada. So many different connections. All right, the next connection. The second feature of our microhistory that I want to amplify is, oh, you want to see it again? That's okay. But another thing that's interesting about salawatan is the confluence of singing salawat, but also maulid, and huge events where reciting together in a big group, singing together is cathartic, it's religious, it's educational, it's progressive, while also looking back, right? So again, think about this idea of articulatory labor from Fajri Ismail Al-Attas, the idea that the music, the ritual, the event, it does something. It does the work of creating religious experience. So we can go on. Next slide, please. Okay, and the third feature, let's turn up the volume, if we can, on this idea of recitation as a tool of diplomacy and community around the Indian Ocean. So during the spring of 2021, a research team comprising Prof. Dadi Darmadi and Prof. Muhammad Asad and myself invited our old friend, among many others, including Ustad Iqbal, hello, thank you for coming, to join our focused group discussion with professional Quranic reciters and educators. Saya kira bapaknya yang FGD ketiga. Yeah, this is the second one, yeah? So this was a time, if you remember in 2021, everybody was at home. Belum ada vaccine, right? We were all just waiting for the vaccine and listening to the batasan-batasan dari pemerintah and trying to be very careful. Many of our friends were sick and dying. And this is what Kiai Rifat dari Pondok Pesantren Al-Falah and Pondok Pesantren Al-Falah II di Cicalengka. He's the director of these two schools. He's a member of the Brotherhood of Mosque Imams. He's also a mutawaf. He told our group about the experience of hosting a Hafat al-Quran on Zoom, right? Hafla al-Quran on Zoom, never before, right? While not ideal, he admitted that the format allowed for several international participants to join, particularly the sensation Sheikh Raji Ayub from Tanzania. So now I'm going to quote Kiai Rifat. He said like this, "So, I think it turns out that this pandemic also provides a kind of avenue for us to be creative. Yes, including making international haflas through Zoom meetings. It is true that what we love, we can experience through Zoom. It's not as beautiful as in live because we can't set the sound system and so forth. But in my opinion, there, through Zoom, we can experience the authenticity of the reciter's voice without amplification or without sound effects. It's amazing. We can listen to Sheikh Ayub's authentic voice without the echo effect and without delay. Even though the participants are far away, the view is very close. That's how emotional connection works. In the Zoom room, we feel very close." So let's watch one clip of Sheikh Ayub di sini, di Indonesia. Kasihan suaranya, volumenya is so small. Last slide. Yeah. So we see that with this last example, that the reciters in the Ummah below the winds, right? Di bawah musim, below the monsoon winds, are part of a communal sound world within an Indian Ocean, Asia, Africa. It is an ancient predisposition that has proved resilient to political and scholarly categorization by nation, by race, by class, gender, and religion, and it has only been boosted by the internet-based capacities of the day. Monsoon Melodies, listening to Muslim Indonesia in an Indian Ocean world, is my current project. So I ask, what if we were to listen for the musical discourse of Arkan al-Islam, right? We always say, apakah itu Islam? Shahada, Salat, Ramadan fasting, the Hajj, and Zakat, right? But what would we ask, how does this sound What does this sound? What does the Shahada sound like? What about the audio palimpsest of 5 daily prayers? How would we transcribe the month of Ramadan? Can we know Zakat by its music? And what if we could introduce our students and gift our generous consultants with an open access book that is free to read, easy to find, and rich with audiovisual materials that to me are central to understanding of religious life in Indonesia. So there's an American novelist, an African-American novelist in America called Toni Morrison, and she said, quote, "If there's a book that you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it." So this year, I'm writing that book. And I thank you very much for your time and attention, and I welcome your feedback now. Next slide, please. Now or by email. Please send me an email if you have any feedback or any questions. And thank you so much for your attention, and especially all that fantastic music. That's a very hard act to follow. Yeah? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, now we are going to the question answer session, but I think there are what to call it some notes, but I think it's better firstly to invite the participant to make a question. Okay, yeah, please, ya. Silakan. Kalau ada yang mau bertanya, ya, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ya.
Baik, thank you very much for the time given to me. My name is Ahmad Mutakin from Faculty of Da'wah. For me, it is very interesting topic because my background in Quranic studies, and in Quranic studies, we study about the living Quran. The living Quran means how the people, Muslim, interact with the Quran, not as a text to be understood, but how they interact the Quranic text in their daily activity. For example, for reciting the Quran or calligraphy in the mosque. And one aspect of living Quran is aesthetic aspect, how the Quran is recited in various ritual, in cultural ceremony. And my question, according to your research in 1919 and now in 2017, probably there is differences between the past and the present in the aspect the participation of women in Islamic ritual. And how do you see the participation of women as the reciter or the performer of women Muslim in Indonesia nowadays, if we compare with the past time when you visit Indonesia in the first time? And the second question, very interesting, you mentioned about the Kiai Kanjeng Enu Najib. I watched many videos of Kiai Kanjeng, and in my opinion, Kiai Kanjeng put the music as critic of politics Indonesia, because sometimes he changed the lyric of salawat and insert the political intention to critique the government. And my question, how do you see the music Islamic music in Indonesia as a critic of political situation and how it is seen when it is compared to the other Islamic country maybe. Thank you very much.
Ya, satu lagi yang belakang, because we are not have enough time, ya. I think just only one more, ya. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Miss. What I want to ask is, in one of the video that we watched together, they perform salawat, and there's someone is dancing Sufi, who dancing with like spinning in circles. So, as we know, music that accompanies salawat is the main media of the dakwah, but just adding other art such as Sufi can increase the value of the dakwah. That's my question. Thank you.
I think for the first. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Okay. From the right side, I think. Yeah.
My name is Hairiawati. I'm a lecturer in Faculty of Dawah, Unisba. My question is that before I come to my question, I think it's very, very amazing that I got insight from you, Miss Anne. Okay, and to my surprise, that the music actually, it is universal, but that Islamic music becomes very stunning when that some from the Indian Ocean, from Indonesia to other world, okay, it seems that it sounds the same thing. What is it? It's Islamic values. Okay, and now, but today, the same similar questions to Pak Mutakin, that nowadays music, actually Islamic music, has already been politicized. Okay, and could you also find these issues in other countries? Perhaps not only in Indonesia, but in other countries too. Okay, thank you. And the second question is that, from your research, did you find that congregation through music, okay, it is actually maybe more women, okay, congregate in musicalities rather than males. Okay, did you also find the same thing in other countries? Okay, yes. More women. Yes, yeah, more women participate in the musicalities rather than male. Okay, and you also mentioned about the empowerment, for women through the something like rituals in music. Okay, thank you.
I think for the time being, it's okay.
Terima kasih banyak atas pertanyaan yang sangat penting dan relevan, ya. Thanks so much. So, Pak Ahmad, okay, Quranic studies and da'wah, good reading, understand. Okay, the living Quran. This is an important thing in your Quranic studies. You know, many of the reciters, when I first was doing my research, said, there's so many people who recite. Everybody does a little bit, right? There are many people in Indonesia but there are fewer people who recite really well. And the smallest number of people are the people who recite really well and understand it, understand what they're reciting. And then I guess we can also say that another category is those who recite well, who understand and that who apply the ayat-ayat suci Al-Quran kepada hidupnya. So let me tell you a very small story. In 2016, saya jadi presiden Society for Ethnomusicology. Dan kebetulan ada Haja Ibu Maria Ulfa di Amerika untuk tour, sponsornya Kedutaan Indonesia. So saya mengundang untuk opening ceremonies di konferensi saya, dan I was so proud to present my Indonesian colleague, and so that because you know my colleagues, they have seen my work, I've showed videos of Ibu Maria reciting. So this was also a really terrible time because the day before the conference was the presidential election when Trump was elected. So everybody in my conference was menangis. They were marah, menangis, luar biasa, terkejut bahwa bagaimana Trump bisa naik ke presiden. Yeah? So it was a really very tense time. So Ibu Maria, she recited, and for the American conference, international conference, but mostly Americans not familiar with the recitation. So afterwards I said, oh, Ibu Maria, it's so nice that you recited. Can you tell us about the meaning of the verses that you recited? And she said, well, of course, I recited the verses that have to do with education and looking for knowledge, because you here at this conference are all exchanging knowledge, and these are the verses that you need right now. So, you know, rather than just something that sounded beautiful and something with great, you know, tajweed in Arabic, you know, she really was thinking about what is the context, right, for this recitation. So I think that that idea of the living Quran is a really important one. In terms of women reciters, you know, when I came, because I went to this Institute Ilmu Quran, it was filled with women. And then I began to shadow Maria Ulfa and her colleagues ke grup pengajian ibu-ibu, ke mana saja. And you know, one thing that I think is interesting, very quickly, harus membaca buku saya, ya, but very quickly, there's a lot of gender equality in the Quran. For example, in the prayer that we heard, al-mu'minin wal-mu'minat, al-muslimin wal-muslimat, right? In English, this gender equality hilang, right? We just say the listeners, the believers, and we assume men, right? But in the Quran, you have this gender equality. In Indonesia, for example, in Musabaqah Tilwatil Quran, if you have a training ceremony, pasti ada laki-laki, ada perempuan, right? Together, they're rehearsing together, practicing in the same room. Tanpa green screen, ya? Hanya bekerja tajweed, bekerja tilawah. Terus in the competitions, biasanya, my experience, you have a male reciter, and then a female reciter, and then a male reciter, and then a female reciter. If we think about sports competitions, pasti the men are with the men, and the women are with the women, right? So very interesting that with Al-Quran, we have men, women, and often you have a male MC introduce the woman, and then the translation, and then you have a female MC introduce the man. And 50% of the calon, the peserta, 50% are women and 50% are men, right? Now, the feminist scholar and writer Mustamulia, she said, you know, we don't suffer from religion, women don't suffer from religion, we suffer from patriarchy, right? So, pasti tidak ada 50% women in the Dewan Hakim. There's not 50% in the panitia, except if it's the panitia for organizing snacks. Kalau organizing snacks, pasti perempuan, ya? So I don't see it going up or down. Now maybe in the conservative turn and the climbing of conservatism, which I think has peaked, Islam keras sudah turun sedikit ya. Maybe there have been some prohibitions of women becoming reciters. Like maybe there are families that say, it's not good for you to do this in public, but I don't know. That's not in my research. So, yeah. Also, I think, you know, for Kiai Kanjeng to use religion to criticize the government, I think, yeah, it's important because if we think about the principles of government, they are equality. Everybody should have enough to eat. Everybody should have human rights, right? Everybody should be able to have a job, right? But sometimes when we look at the government, we don't have equal rights, and there are problems with some human rights and problems with corruption and so forth. And I think that's what, you know, somebody like Chatnun is trying to point out. And since he's so often with people from the grassroots, I think he's really trying to, you know, bring people up, make them proud of their culture, make them proud of their area, of their language, of their, you know, their special foods and everything, and not to feel, yeah, unworthy. So I think that to use religion as a way to make people feel more proud of themselves, if it involves a little criticism of the government, the government can probably handle it, yeah? So really great questions. Yeah, the combination of Sufi dancing, right? Really interesting. I was so surprised to see that, and I've seen it maybe 4 or 5 times, but I know that, you know, the whirling dervishes, you know, like yoga, like other things, it's kind of a world phenomenon, right? So even though mungkin kurang cocok if we're looking for something 100% authentic, right? But it's certain that, you know, things change, right? Even though we think about religion as a kind of a static thing that has to stay the same, of course there are innovations. Like I think even this group was influenced by Habib Sheikh, this suite of salawat. Saya bisa mendengar, mungkin ada pengaruh yang maybe 20 years ago there wouldn't be that influence. So I think kenapa enggak, ya, ada whirling dervish. I know I was really surprised to see that, and I've seen women and men as whirlers. Satu kali di Lamongan saya melihat satu perempuan yang bikin whirling dervish, ya. Also really interesting to me is the combination of songs in Arabic with religious lyrics, but also songs that are popular songs or love songs used in a religious context. Seperti ada grup qasidah rebana yang bawa Habibi ya Nurulain. Ya, Habibi ya Nurulain pasti lagu romantis. Tapi kenapa enggak? Itu bahasa Arab dan ya main rebana, ini sudah terkait dengan Islam. So yeah, so many different kinds of innovation. And then Prof dari jurusan dakwah, terima kasih banyak. Yeah, politicized. So the example that I showed about the Langgam Jawa, the Istana Presiden, even the melody is politicized. All of a sudden, ada orang dari MUI, ada orang yang tidak boleh, ini haram, tidak boleh. Ini hanya untuk melodi. Tajwidnya bagus, Qurannya bagus, Qori yang cukup bagus, ya Yasir Arafat. Tapi ada orang yang bilang, melodi, nada-nada itu tidak boleh. And I think, you know, the reason that melody becomes politicized is not because of the notes themselves, but because people associate the notes Langgam Jawa, mungkin dengan tayuban, dengan perempuan yang berdansa, yang ada orang yang ya pakai ini ya, what's it called? Kampen, yeah. And you know, maybe for a wedding, and maybe ada orang yang ada wang put in here, right? So that's what they're thinking. But you know, maybe the people who are complaining about the Langgam Jawa really don't know the culture that the Langgam Jawa comes from. So they just have stereotypes. Yeah, ini heboh, ini is not a good context. So yeah, and music is totally politicized in the United States. I also think music can lose its political power. Like orang seperti Jimi Hendrix, right? Satu rocker, bikin Star Spangled Banner, pakai electric guitar, and this was very critical. But now we hear it and sudah soft, ya, sudah tidak ada kekuasaan politis seperti yang ada maybe 50 years ago, right? But sometimes music is very, very political, but often because of who is making the music. Yeah, if people don't like those people, then their music is bad. And in terms of ibu-ibu, pasti oleh karena saya tertarik ibu-ibu, saya ikut ibu-ibu, dan I always like to have a womanist perspective. But I think even in the United States, women are often responsible for the religious education of the children and for the religious activities of the church, for example. So women are responsible to make sure that children say their prayers, go to church, become involved in the activities. They organize the dinners, they organize the events. Like here in Indonesia, selalu ada banyak perempuan di belakang kegiatan-kegiatan organisasi religi sesuatu, ya. And I think they also find power in their position as religious leaders, right? Even if they're not the imam, or they're not the ulama, or they're not the pidato, yeah. But here, you know, you have the situation of kiai and nyai, and many women, especially when they're with women, are very powerful, right? Maybe we don't see them in mixed events, but among women, they are number one. Yeah. So as I saw a talk about Islamic feminism 2 days ago at Universitas Gadjah Mada, and one of the conclusions is that feminism is good for everybody, not just for women. Yeah? So, very good question, yeah? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I think we are still more question. I think to ask more question, but for us, especially for men, we have to attend for the Jum'ah prayer. Of course. Yeah. So I think, but of course for male, for female, I think you can ask privately. I think after we close this session, yeah, for the female. But for us, I think we stop this question answer session. Yeah, if you want to ask, yes. Yeah, I think thank you very much. So unluckily we have to stop this answer question session. Yeah, unluckily. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Now,
mungkin bisa next slide. Oh, bisa. There's a Bandung slide. No. Next, back. Yeah, that. No, back. Yeah, this one with. Oh, no. Okay, forget it. Just turn it off. It's okay. Saya ada slide terakhir Bandung. Bandung ada, tapi ya. No. Backwards. Di belakang. Before. Ini dia. Yang
ada Bandung.
Next one. That's it. Nah, Bandung. Back. Di belakang.
Gedung Bandung konferensi.
Slide terakhir. Good, that's the one. Stop. Saya minta terima kasih banyak sekali, dan thank you so much for Ibu Ida. And I couldn't do any of this research if it were not for all of these people and hundreds of other people just like you who are here to ask me interesting questions and to tell me about and to invite me. Really, it's really you that makes this possible. So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And thank you so much, Pat. Yeah. Good.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please once again give applause for Professor An. Thank you very much, and I'll convey our gratitude to Dr. Malki as a moderator and Professor An as a speaker for sharing your knowledge and providing valuable insights today. And after this, we will go to the next agenda. The next agenda is awarding of plaques and certificates by Dr. Ida Afida to Prof. An. And for Mr. Malki, please return to your seats. And for Professor Anna, please remain on stage. Yeah. Please once again give applause. Okay. Awarding plaques and certificate by Dr. Ida Fida to Professor An. Please give applause once again. Okay, once again, thank you very much for Professor Anna. Okay, thank you so much. And after this, everyone, the next agenda is a group photo. We kindly request all attendees to please stand. Please raise and take a group photo. Di tempat ya. Please remain on your place. Okay, just give a good pose and the cameraman will take your picture. Okay, 1, 2, 3, action. Okay, once again, one more. Another pose maybe? Okay. Be more cheerful. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, action. Nice. Dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today in the event guest lecture from the Archipelago to the world, the rich traditions of Islamic music in Indonesia. I hope you found the event informative and inspiring. We look forward to seeing you at our future events. Have a wonderful day, and I'm Sarah. Please excuse me, I take my leave. Thank you so much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
sesama